Thank you very much for being here tonight. My name is Francine, and I'm very, very happy to be here. I've just flown in from London today because I was invited to facilitate this conversation that we're going to have tonight. So the topic tonight in this dialogue series is industry and environment. So we're going to be really thinking about mental health within the creative industries. I'm going to get everyone to introduce themselves in a minute. We're a very music-y group up here. But I think everything that we're going to be talking about tonight is going to be very relevant to whatever creative field that you might find yourself in. And I'm hoping that everybody's going to come out with some really practical tips about how to deal with things and a lot of information about what obstacles or what pressures you might meet in your forthcoming careers. So if I just get everyone to introduce themselves first, perhaps we can start with Sunny.
Yeah. I'm Sunny. I'm a DJ and a producer also, and I'm also a designer. I design t-shirt. I design. Yeah, I'm an inventor. I create my own ideas and I sell them. This is how I get most of my money. Make idea and I sell them.
Great. I'm Christine Brown. I'm Director of External Affairs and Business Development for a UK charity called Help Musicians. If you haven't heard of Help Musicians, it's been around since 1921, so nearly 100 years old, and it really looks after the health and welfare of musicians and those who are working in the industry. And one of the reasons why I'm here is because I've been leading the mental health campaign for the charity. I commissioned academic research called Can Music Make You Sick? And since then we've launched a 24/7 support line and service for everyone working in the industry. And my real ambition is to make sure that it's a global service. So that's why I'm really pleased to be here tonight to see what we can do outside of the UK.
Yeah, my name is Christopher Jarman. I've been a professional DJ and producer for 20 years across a multitude of different genres. I've also run record labels and I've worked as a mastering engineer for almost a decade. I've done a lot of touring, a lot of admin responsibilities, and I'm also a tutor here at DBS Music.
Cool. And as I mentioned earlier, I'm Francine. I work for a few different projects. I run something called Ja, which is a Nordic music showcasing platform that we run here in Berlin, and we run it in London. I also work with the PRS Foundation in the UK on a gender equality project called Key Change, which is a very exciting one. And in the past, I've worked as a journalist. I work as a consultant for streaming services and various different things. So I think we've got quite a broad range of experience from different parts of the industry here. So hopefully this is going to be a nice, interesting conversation. But to get things started, I just want to ask Christine if you could explain a little bit more about the Can Music Make You Sick study.
Yeah, of course. Yeah. The first thing to say about the study, which surprised me at the time, is that it's actually the world's first, so it's the first of its kind, which is quite surprising when we commissioned it in 2015. And so it's not any real surprise why mental health is such a taboo topic when it's only really being researched, and there's lots of evidence for many years of there being a link between mental health and the creative industries. But the study itself, the first phase of the study was a survey, and it was nationwide, and from that we had over 2,200 respondents. So quite a big data pool, and that's from across the whole industry. So we're talking managers, musicians, those who identified as musicians, DJs, producers, even say people like myself who work for a music organisation. And so from the stats, the kind of key statistics are that around 71% of people identified as having some sort of depression, and around 69 said that they had anxiety. So compared to the general public, that would state or suggests that people who work in music are 3 times more likely to suffer from some sort of depression or anxiety. So for us, it was quite alarming. Whilst there has been evidence, as I said, anecdotal evidence, having it there to see that it's 3 times more likely, then it was quite alarming, and we felt like we had to do something about it as the charity for musicians. But we looked at what the recommendations were. So the study also didn't just look at what the challenges are, and there were many challenges, which I'm sure we'll come on to, about what the themes of why people were depressed or anxious. But we also asked people what they wanted and what they needed, because there was a clear gap, and it was around 50% or over 50% who said that they felt like there was nothing really for them as someone who was in the creative sphere. They wanted someone who understood, and also waiting lists were really long. So, and it was Chester Bennington who took his own life last year, and that was kind of the final moment when we thought that we'll launch our service. So that's kind of a quick roundup, but there were many themes. I'm not sure if you want me to go into them or whether you're going to talk about them.
I think we'll probably touch on them as we're going through the chat. So it'd be really nice if you could just let us know what the results that you found from the survey were as we're going along.
Yep.
But just before we move on, can you just tell us a little bit about the helpline that came out of the
of course.
Of the study?
So the helpline, well, we call it a support line and service because it's much more than a helpline. It's called Music Minds Matter. It is 24/7. So it's in the UK currently, as I say, and completely free of charge, but we are looking to roll it out across the world, bearing in mind that this isn't just a domestic issue. I'm here, we know it's something that's a global issue and needs to be addressed. So you can call 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, and there'll be someone there who's trained not only in mental health, but also music. They've worked in music before, so they get it, so they understand. And from that, it's emotional support, listening, advice, as into signposting if you may want to look for services in your area. But it goes a bit further than that, so that people can access online cognitive behavioural therapy, talking therapies, and face-to-face therapies completely free of charge. And this means that you don't have to, you can go to your GP, but people were finding that they were waiting months to get any help. So people have been able to access help within, 2 days. And then if they qualify for help as a music professional, so bearing in mind that mental health isn't often an isolated issue, it can be because someone has money problems, or they might have an injury, or they might have had an accident which is impacting their health. Our charity then can provide grants for people. So if you've got an injury, you can't work, we can see you through that period of time. But again, this is the reason why it's really important for me to be here, is because our charity, not just the mental health line, wants to be able to support those outside of the UK as well, so that we really have a united and joined up approach to physical and mental health in the music industry and beyond.
Yeah, brilliant, thank you. And as artists and creators, when you hear that 71% of your peers have stated that they've suffered from some kind of anxiety or depression, does that surprise you in any way?
Not in the slightest.
Okay.
Not in the slightest.
So do you think that, is this a topic that you've discussed much with other DJs, for example?
Well, DJs that I know personally, for sure, because obviously you get a window into their personal lives. When you're actually out on the road, people, obviously put up a lot of barriers. You want to appear to be on top of what you're doing.
Yeah, and I think that's a huge thing that's going to affect anybody in the creative industries, isn't it? Is that you always want to be, it's such a competitive field that you're in, so you always want to be seen as being at the forefront, being on top of your game, and so I guess this is why the conversation around mental health has been so stigmatized, hopefully up until now, where we're speaking more freely about these things.
I'm not surprised, but first when you decide, for me, when I decided to be an artist, I know I was putting my life on the line. I know it's like I'm crucifying myself. If you have the money, that still doesn't mean you might still be on the top. So you might go through stress, through depression and everything. But most of you don't know my life. Like 2010, I had an accident. I was a good boxer in Italy. I had everything. I used to travel. I used to go to places to fight and everything. And after my accident, my life changed. And I remember I asked the doctor, would I still like continue fighting? And he told me, yeah, you're gonna continue fighting. Don't worry, you're gonna be on the ring back as soon as you get back. But then I used to go to the studio. I wasn't a producer. I was just helping artists, you know. Like somebody told me, there's this guy, he can sing, he can perform and whatever. And like I try to invest my time and take them to the studio. And so that was more depressing than me staying in the hospital, because you're working with artists and just like too much of just this huge expectation that they're gonna be tomorrow morning a superstar or a super DJ or whatever. So the point is, I've always like believed, for me music was my passion. I love it. I love it, and I was ready to like respect it and treat it properly. And know that, yeah, I know today you're not gonna make me be rich, tomorrow you're not gonna make me be rich, but I know I'm gonna continue working and see where you take me to, where you're gonna take me to. Because it's hard, you don't, this is 2018, it's not easy these days, I don't know, but this, we're in the hardest period of our life. Being an artist this period, I think, is the hardest.
I kind of feel like being an artist nowadays is kind of like a perfect storm, because you're in a very insecure job where anything can change very quickly. Your income is hinging on it, but you're also surrounded by a lot of bad things.
Yeah.
A lot of alcohol, a lot of drugs.
A lot of alcohol.
And it's a perfect storm.
A lot of alcohol, a lot of drugs, yes. But also to spend time and do research on yourself. Like sit down and ask yourself, what kind of artist do you want to be? Because that's where you have the delay. The delay is you're making all this music, you're getting them out, and you're not seeing any changes, and you go in depression because nobody's looking you online, nobody's interested in what you do. That is super depressing. When I started as an artist, that was not depressing for me, but it was frustrating. Like I was frustrated, like, whoa. So sometimes you get your hands off the software and try to update yourself and think of other avenues where you can promote and stuff like that. So if somebody go into depression, I can understand him, because it feels like, God, nobody listens to my music. God, you saw me, I'm not getting gig, I'm not doing this, I'm not doing that. But maybe you should stand up from the computer and like look yourself and think of how you want to present yourself and do research and understand how other people are making it, are doing it. I spend my time doing this. I stopped making music for 1 year just to understand how I can walk through this music feed properly, how I can tell somebody my music is out, can you please go and check it, how I can tell somebody buy my music. When I start to understand this, frustration, depression, everything disappeared, because I knew I had a track, I had some certain number of people I can count on anytime, and they never disappoint me. So there's a lot.
I found it much easier in the past, like, because I was young, I was much younger, and all my friends around me, all wanting to do the same thing. But you get, like, you go into your 30s and all your friends are suddenly doing things with their lives. They're going off and they're getting mortgages and they're succeeding in their careers. All of a sudden, you're still doing the thing that you're doing when you're 20. Yeah, it's different. It's a completely different thing. You have to approach it in a completely different way.
Yeah, it is different. That's actually one of the things that came out of the study, was the insecurity. However, the flip side is, so whilst you're doing the same thing as you've done in your 20s, that's something you love. And actually, the study might be called "Can Music Make You Sick?" but everyone in the study who responded and who were interviewed said that they love music. That's why you continue to do it. Also you, and they didn't want a 9-to-5 routine. Yeah, okay, someone else might have had a mortgage, but actually they didn't.
Yeah.
They might want the mortgage, but they didn't want the 9-to-5 bit to get it. But then some other artists, say younger artists now, you'll find have more of a portfolio career. So they don't just do one thing. In fact, they might actually have a job at the weekend to make ends meet.
Yeah.
It's tricky, but what I don't want to do is to sit here and be doom and gloom about it either. And I want to say that from the outset, because I think that we're all here because we love being in the creative industries. It's really important to talk about the issues. It really is, but already you can see that music's really important to both of you. You know, and you're still doing it, but it's how do we mitigate some of the challenges and, you know, and how recognizing they're there, but then, yeah, how do we deal with them?
Yeah. And I think you made a really good point a second ago, just about being realistic and about doing your research.
Yeah.
You know, not expecting to pick up a guitar and be in Metallica all of a sudden. You know, you have to know what the journey's like. You have to, and I think in the current climate, in the current day and age, it's quite well known that it's a bit of it's going to be a struggle to become, if you want to make music or film or whichever industry it is that you're in, if you want to make that your central income, if you want to make it your day-to-day life, then it's going to be a bit difficult, but it's not impossible in any way. One thing that I do want to talk about is the influence that the internet has had on all of this thing. So I always hate bringing up the internet because I always feel like a really old lady being like, so the internet's here now. But,
I remember the internet. I remember the internet coming into play.
Before the internet, before back in the day, you know, you had record labels that would put out your record for you. It was a very systematic process, and arguably an artist was more able to just be an artist. You know, they didn't necessarily have to deal with everything else, but it's so easy to release your own music now. You'll find artists that are not just artists, they're also their own managers, they're their own labels, they're their own publishers. So I feel like that's a huge amount of pressure to put onto an artist.
Yeah, it's true. I'm the manager of myself. I'm the everything of myself. It's a huge tax. It's hard, but if you know what you want, you know this is how you can balance your music and feel like, yeah, I'm gonna make music, and I have that 2-3 hours. I'm gonna dedicate my time doing this and that and that. You know, I follow principles. Like I have my rules. I follow them, and it works. I have one for beat making, 2 for that stand up of the computer, contact, 3 write emails, write to people, and so I follow these things every day. And it took me time to understand all these things. It took me time because I think I spent half of my life going to seminars, trying to listen to other producers and artists, just watch them and learn. I learned a lot from them, and I go online and I see something in their website and I try to understand, okay, how can I, even if I don't know what it's called, I go to ask people. And so I try to, I think our biggest problem is still yet, we just want to sit there in front of computer. Once you're an artist who does everything like me, myself, I do everything. And sometimes I get nothing done. I get no results, nothing comes out of everything I do. Then I go to sleep because I know maybe I'm tired, music frequency, everything is blown my mind out. But I have the time I have to stay away from computer just to work on my brand, on myself, dedicate a serious time on my brand, on myself. For me, it's important as an artist to this period, this internet age is important.
Yeah.
For me, it's important.
So you see it as a positive thing then, that you can have control over pretty much every element of your career if you want to.
And if you can get help, it's good. If you can get help, it's good. It's good. I remember in Italy, I had friends who were all into this, doing it, but they were more frustrated than I, because I was just making the music, and I told him, like, you help me send the email, you do this, you do that, you do this. But everybody was, send the email, but you have to send maybe 20, 40 emails. You have to think of what you want to tell them, how you want to tell them. You don't want to, so there are things. But I believe in myself, and I try not to go over the limit of consuming my energy doing things that's going to get me sick at the end of the day. So I try to do just a little bit. Yeah. A little bit. I don't stretch it, I don't stress it, but I try, because it's also good for me mentally, because you don't want to sit there. And for me, like, I was in the studio from 10 o'clock this morning till 4 o'clock. Now I think I'm having headache and stuff, and so I think it's also good to, like, stay and try to work on yourself, because as an artist, that's the work we should be doing.
Yeah.
that's what we should be doing. If you want, then if you get the label or if you have people, it's good. But if you don't have the money, you need to find a way to manage your time.
Yeah, I think that's really smart.
Yeah, this is
I
how
think, and I think that it's music is obviously the, or like we say, whatever the creative, whatever passion you have. And to go back to the study, like everyone had passion, you know, that was, it's kind of music or was their identity. It was like part of themselves. So, but I think there is something in the fact that you can't just focus on the music. I mean, in this day and age, with the internet, when everything's so available,
everything is there.
Yeah, but also people are, yeah, you can get your music out, but then everybody can get their music out. It's more competitive. So I think what you're saying is it's really smart to know how to see yourself, not just as an artist or, but as a business person.
Yeah, that's more for focus to like a businessman.
Yeah.
And I don't like, for example, I make my music, but I don't do the mastering because I know I can't do it. And even if I can do it, I just don't want to get my time frustrated sitting there trying to do the mastering. So I know that's just a little investment. I give it to somebody. So when somebody is doing the mastering, I know I can continue thinking of, yeah, this music is coming out. What do I have to do to, you know? So my time, the portions, I try to divide them and think of a way to keep moving without being frustrated. And I really, really, really enjoy it because I don't, except if you wake up in the morning, 6 o'clock and go to work somewhere, it's still the same thing, you're working for somebody. But if you have the chance to work for yourself as an artist, from 6 o'clock in the morning to 6 o'clock in the evening, why do you want to get frustrated? Then you have to understand you have to work for yourself. It's work. You're an artist, you have to work. Or you can quit and go to work in a factory where you wake up 5, you work till 6 o'clock, you must kill yourself at the same time because maybe you don't like it.
Well, I think the internet's made everything way better, way, way better. Like you think back, I mean, I'll just use one example. So back in the day, this is even before we had cell phones, you could turn up to an airport and if that promoter didn't show up, you were screwed. You were trying to change money into the currency of the country that you're in to try and phone your agent. Now you can just get your phone, you can reach your support network really easy. In terms of sending demos, you know, you used to have to do that in the post and most of the time they would ignore you. You had to go up to people in clubs. So a lot of the scenes were incredibly localised. So, for example, when I was doing sort of the jungle drum and bass thing, if you weren't from London, forget it. It wasn't going to happen. Now it's completely democratised. It's really easy to get your stuff out there. Like a pre-internet era, it was really difficult. Selling your records. If you wanted to sell your own record, you'd have to hire a van and drive around to all the record shops.
Yeah,
and
I told you last
physically
time.
hand the records. You don't even have to leave your studio now.
I saw this dude on the bike selling his record. I never thought it was possible. And I was buying this record and this guy came with the bike and brought out this record and I told him, he said, you know, I sell it, it's yours. Wow, how do you do it? Yeah, just put them on the bike and go around. I'm like, yeah, I want to be like that.
Yeah.
This is how.
So I don't miss that at all. I don't miss that one at all.
I want to sell my record like this. I want to put them in the truck
and also,
just drive.
like, producers, much more open nowadays. In the past, everyone would keep their secrets and it was really difficult and everyone made it out to be some black magic and it isn't.
Chris, if you hide the secret, there's YouTube. Sorry.
Like, exactly. It's
what about the other side, though? Just because only because I touched upon it, because yes, I agree, it's really accessible, and but then, as it kind of suggested, but then it makes it more competitive because everybody can do it. Then you go a stage further, which is that everybody then feels that they can be your critic. So you put something out and someone doesn't like it, they'll tell you. It doesn't matter who they are. It could be anybody, really. But everybody can be your critic. There's more competition. Actually, I believe, and this is just from my own personal perspective, and I'm not trying to put anything out in terms of music, but if you think about what social media does in terms of, even from my personal life, why do you post photographs? Do we sit there and we wait for likes? So when you put something out which is from your heart, something that is you, and then you don't get the likes, that can also bring feelings of, say, depression. So it's kind of bittersweet with it, for me anyway, in social media.
Yeah,
absolutely.
It's true.
Yeah,
it's true.
I work on a conference called Survive in Norway. So it's something that happens every November. And last year at Survive, we had one of the people that wrote the study that Christine's been talking about, come over to present it to everybody and to talk through it. We also had a lot of artists come and have a chat with us about various different issues that they've had along the way in the music industry. And one really big thing that came out of it was social media presence. And we had two artists. We had one called Will, who used to go by the name East India Youth, and a Norwegian singer called Hannah Kolstø. And Hannah has completely taken herself off of social media because she felt so pressurized to really share like more of her personal self online than she really wanted to. Whereas Will had a bit of a different view of it. He realized that in order to keep people engaged and to keep up with competition and to make sure that his fans were still listening to him, that he was in the forefront of their mind, he felt that he had to be really strategic and he had to become his own social media manager on top of being his own everything else that he was. So it was quite interesting to have those two really different perspectives. And one thing that Hannah said, which sort of agrees with what you just said there, is that the music that she is putting out, she feels she's already putting so much of herself out in front of people that to then share a picture of herself in her kitchen or something like that, that's just too much. And so what we were talking, or what the result of that conversation was how important boundaries are and how important just recognizing where your own boundaries lie are and just being quite firm with them as well. So if your record label says to you, you need to be better on social media, you need to be confident enough in yourself to say, no, I don't want to be that present on social media, so how else can we do it? And raise those questions.
I think it's right. It's because someone can say be better at social media, but you're right, it has to be strategic. It's got to be what's right for you. And maybe your technique of just putting little bits of time, so you could even, in terms of making it a healthier relationship, you could even say, right, okay, I'm going to do 1 hour of social media today to focus on what is, and you can look at it. So my background is marketing and comms and all of that type of stuff. So I think it's really important to think about who you are and what type of person do you want to be on social media, because it doesn't actually have to be the person that you are personally. It can be whoever you want to create.
You're an artist. You're an artist.
And I think that's really important too. Think about what's your tone of voice, what style of imagery do you want to give out, and it can be completely controlled.
Yeah, and I think that links very well with this boundaries comment that Hannah had as well, just sort of understanding, how you want to present yourself and just having the time and space as an artist to step back and get that perspective. And I think it's something that maybe a lot of people don't take the time to do because they're so busy doing everything else that they need to get everything rolling and get people to their shows. And but I think it is really important to just understand how you work.
It's important. Like I said, first you have to look yourself in the mirror and ask yourself like who you want to be. This is, I don't know 20 years back how you guys used to do it, but now for me, sometimes I take pictures and I say, no, not for Instagram, no. So on my website, I have like some photos I tag not for Instagram. Put them on my website. You don't go to Instagram. I have this app. I made so much research that, okay, for example, I have this app, so I know my Twitter, Instagram, Facebook page, whatever is connected to just one app. And I know I could sit down and just tweet one. It goes to everything. I'm done for the day.
Well, that's true. There's things.
Yeah. So this.
Like Sprout Social is
Yes,
what we use. So you
yeah,
can time your
Sprout,
tweets. So you do it in the morning, it's
party
done.
and stuff, and you just tweet one and everything goes in. Your mind is free. It's just instantly, and you continue doing your daily stuff. It took me 6 years to understand all these things.
Yeah.
If not, I was there, Twitter, now Facebook, now Instagram, shit, no. But I found this and it's game changing. Everything once, because you have to be on social these days. You can be an artist and you have to be a little bit on social, little bit. But try to also like let them understand this is what you do. I only try to use it to let them understand this is what you do. And my social either I'm trying to tell you I make music today, I'm trying to give you a motivational quote, I'm trying to tell you how I dress today, 1, 2, 3, and finish.
Okay, yeah. So I think we've had a good chat there about like presenting yourself as an artist, but maybe we should go into some of the real things that can play on an artist's mind and really sort of interrupt what it is that they're doing. And I know everybody hates to talk about it, but money is a huge part of this. So perhaps I could get you guys to share some of the pressures that you might have experienced along the way, or some of the feedback that you had from the survey.
Well, so for example, when I started, you only needed to make music. That was it. You could make a really good living just off the music. Your gigs would just be like a nice bit of pocket money. Then with the advent of the internet and MP3s, then it became the pressure on the shows. Nowadays, I would definitely say you need to have wear quite a few different hats. You know, that's why I got into mastering, also teaching, because it was just nice to be around people. You know, because everything that I did was super isolating. You know, just you were never around people. Either you're in the airport, you're in the studio, or you're at a gig with a bunch of people you don't know. So it's yeah, you have to wear a lot of hats nowadays. And also your music career is always going to be in flux. You're not always going to be at your best, and you're not always going to be at your most successful. It's going to go in waves all the time. So you always need to have a plan B. But you know, make that plan B in music. There's a lot of amazing things to do in music. You know, like myself, I chose mastering, and I've also chosen teaching. But there's a multitude of other jobs, and it keeps the music industry, the music process interesting as well.
Mm-hmm.
Designing T-shirt and creating this idea. For example, I don't want to say the name of the brand, but I worked with a brand and they discovered me through Instagram, through Facebook and then Instagram, and they saw my work and they told me like, whoa, like it, and I sold it to them. And every month they give me a check for that, but in the sense, I don't believe an artist can do one thing, music. No, I don't believe it.
And also having the freedom for your creativity. When you haven't got all the pressure just on one particular thing that has to work, it frees you to be creative, because you're not stressed. You know, you're not one particular ability that you have isn't doing all the heavy lifting to make you financially viable.
That's a really healthy way of looking at it, actually, because I think you'd probably find some creative or creators that would argue that they need 100% of their headspace to be on the project that they're working on. But what you're saying there is that perhaps that's not the healthiest mindset.
I did that for many years. That's exactly how it was, and it wasn't healthy for me, not at all.
Yeah, and I think there has to be, whilst yes, there could be an argument which is about wanting to focus 100%, but also we've got to be realistic. You know, just putting it out there. The reality is that you can't focus 100% on that, because if you're having money issues and you're depressed or you feel anxious about it, then of course that needs to be addressed, or else you'll continue to feel like that. I'm not saying it's that easy, but I just think the portfolio career, the idea of doing other things and just actually focusing on the more business side could actually enable your creativity and what you create, and for you to be more successful, which would then make you feel better.
Sorry?
No, that's fine. I was just going to say I'm one of the people that decided not to go into performing because I didn't want to not have money, if I'm honest. But I'm really passionate about music. I'm a classical singer, so I trained as a classical singer, came out of college and was singing for, professionally whilst working. And then I just thought, I can't do it anymore. But like you say, there are so many other amazing jobs you can do either with music, or I decided to work for, I didn't know a charity like this even existed, but when I found it, I go into work and, I love my job. So there are other options, whether you decide to do it on the side like you have, or looking into other creative businesses. But for me, it was like, it wasn't going to work for me, because I knew I couldn't handle it mentally, if I'm honest.
Yeah.
Well, I realised I was procrastinating my life away. So, for example, I'll go and do a gig. Say, most of the time I do 2 gigs, 2 gigs at the weekend. I won't do that so much anymore. But then you're kind of telling yourself, I need Monday, Tuesday and Wednesday to recover. But you don't really. It's just an excuse to be lazy.
Yeah.
That time you can spend doing something really positive
and
doing something else. And then you feel fresh when you go to do your
I also
thing.
believe sometimes it depends on what you have around you. Like a friend of mine moved to London of recent. He works in a bar and he keep doing his music, but because he has some cool friends around him, and you know he's always happy after finishing his job to run to his friend and they stay in the studio and they make music. So if you don't know what to create, you don't know what to do, you could get a nice, light, easy job. You could do 3 hours, run back to the studio, chill with your friends and continue making. I think the point is trying to find, like, really focus on, like, also how can this make me, like, happy? Like, what? Like, sometimes I stay in the studio and my friends, they call me like, Sunny, what are you doing? I'm in the studio. You want a coffee? For sure. I take the opportunity. I just tap my computer, nice day. I go to drink with them, I talk, you know. It helped me ease the stress out. So I think it depends on what you have around you. If you have good community around you as a friend, and you finish work, no matter the kind of job you do, if it's 2 or 3 hours, you finish, you up there, you go to the studio, you have, you know. So I think it depends. Music is so frustrating, but it's just little solutions. It's just little solutions. If you can just pick them, I think your life will be very easy.
Yeah.
For me, I feel so.
Like, for example, like I said, I could easily live off my DJ gigs alone, but it's not much fun. You know, I want to be interacting with people.
Exactly.
I want to be doing other things. It's not just financial, it's also for your own sanity as well.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yes.
So you can get a job where you can be working in the bar at the same time promoting yourself as an artist. You can get a job where you can be in the midst of people at the same time promoting yourself. You can get a job where you tell them, yeah, nice, I finished, I'm to go to the studio. Oh, you make music, or whoever, and they go to check you out. So I'm a big fan of grabbing the opportunity. I don't let it go. So it's opportunity, you have to take it. So when my friends, they call me, tell me, Sunny, I stack off, I go to meet them in the bar, we sit, we talk. For me, it's also an opportunity moment. I know I'm going to meet somebody new, I know I'm going to sell myself or introduce myself as an artist. So it's taking the opportunity to find the way you can work and at the same time promote yourself.
Yeah. I just want to pick up on what you were saying about the community aspect of things there as well, and how important this is in the creative industries, you know, having people around you that you can talk to. And at the festival I mentioned from last year, where we were focusing a lot on mental health, relationships were coming up all the time. So one of the really big conversations that we had was an artist relationship with a manager, but then also like a relationship with your family, and you know, all of these support systems that one would hope they'd have around them, but how functional are they really? And you did a big laugh then, so
Yeah, and I just, it's
feel like
because
you've
you
got
looked at this like,
experience.
oh yeah, I sensed some symmetry.
Feel free to.
Well, for example, in any other job, if you want to leave, you just leave, you know, you get your carriage clock and, you know, shake hands and it's fine. When it comes to, you know, I've been through loads of managers and agents who you know, things change, you know, doesn't matter about the issues. It's really hard to get out of those relationships. It's like trying to get out of an actual personal relationship, and that's really hard. It gets personal, it can get nasty. That's the thing I've probably found the most stressful in the business, actually, just falling out with people. Like I say, any other job, you can just say thanks very much, it's been great, but in 2 weeks I'm moving on to great opportunities, and everyone shakes your hands and says good luck. In this business, all the knives come out and it can get really messy.
Yeah, who wants to be a friend with the manager? We don't need to be friend with the manager. We need to be friend with the community that are going to support my music.
I think the opposite.
Yeah, and I would argue that in the industry, that, you know, in the music industry especially, that the lines between friends and colleagues is so blurry. You know, that exactly what you just said, you know, if you decide to part professional ways with somebody, it can be way more complicated than that, and that can be a really stressful thing to go through, not just personally, but also on a professional level. You know, it can really affect contracts that you have in place. And
it's boundaries.
Yeah.
It's boundaries again, but also relationships affecting contracts is something, I mean, I have a real problem with that because we should be professional.
Yeah.
I know I say we should be because I know it happens. I'm not saying, but there's a lot to look at in terms of these processes within the industry or industries, because sometimes when you say industry, it seems like one big place where everything's united. It's not. There's lots of different industries within an industry. But I think so yeah, I think it's also looking at what the processes are and what kind of protocols and policies are in place. So it's also, there's onus on the organisations, whether it be the label, but you know, there's a responsibility there within the relationship to put the professional bits in place so that actually then it wouldn't be a complicated relationship.
Yeah.
Does that make sense?
Yeah, absolutely. And I think every other industry seems to have this figured out really well.
Yeah, like, and when it comes to, for example, I mean, relationships, yes, I think they are really tricky in an industry such as ours. And also there, just to draw on some other things that came out of the study actually, or the positive things that you said, it's like actually the family and friends are the people that supported them most. But actually then there was a feeling of guilt because they felt like they should have been getting that support from their manager or from their publisher or from the industry that they were in. So that's kind of connects to what I'm saying about our responsibility, whether it's about putting professional policies in place, but also, well, I guess that's why we did the study, because there didn't seem, and the service, because there didn't seem to be a central place for people to go for support. Mm-hmm. Anyway, I've just talked around loads of different things there, but yeah. So relationships, yes, but I think what I'm saying is that there's a responsibility within the industries to put professional boundaries and policies, etc., in place.
And this is something that I wanted to bring up as well, is where does the responsibility lie when it comes to looking after the creator in the situation? You know, should it be the creator that is keeping 100% of their eyes on their needs at all times, or, you know, has the manager got to really just playing devil's advocate here?
Yeah, I think I should start with you guys.
Yeah. How important do you think, you know, the team's role should be, and how much should the artist keep to themselves?
It's individual, I suppose. You know, I really like having a strong support network around me. I don't particularly want to engage in a lot of things. I'm much happier having someone else do it. Yeah.
See, this is different.
Yeah. I like to control everything.
I like to be in control as well. I like to be able to say no.
I just showed, I think, Anna, some about like, I like to have everything in palm of mind. I want to go out and what's happening. Every second's about me. Every minute's about me. I'm like with my phone and okay, good. So
Well, you can't be forced to fend for yourself, aren't you? Because you're spending so much time alone. Like, you go off on a tour for 2 months and you do not see one individual longer than 2 days. You are absolutely on your own. I remember growing up, I wasn't into being it. I didn't like my own company. Now I love it. You put me on a desert island, I'd be happy. You know,
would you not take anything with you?
Yeah, a lot of stuff. But, you know, just generally, you know, you are always on your own. You learn to sort of fend for yourself, so to speak.
Yeah. But let's talk about touring or traveling, because these are two things that are so prevalent throughout the creative industries. I think whatever role you're in, whether you're a film producer, you're an artist, you know, wherever you are, there's going to be a time in your career that you're going to be in a foreign country, you're going to be on your own for a long time. And so there's some really strange things that come up. Just to bring it back to music for a second, my colleague from this festival in Norway that I work on, his name is Andy, and he is a manager, he's a tour manager. And I've written something down here that he said to me once that I just thought was really profound. He said, "In what other industry are you met with a case of beer and a bottle of whiskey as soon as you turn up to work?" So in his mind, when he's a tour manager, so he arrives at a venue at 4 o'clock in the afternoon, that's the start of his working day, because he's going to be there until midnight, 1 o'clock. But when he gets into work, there's just alcohol around him. You know, there's people that just expect you to be in party mode all the time. So there's some really strange, you know, it completely messes with your concept of environment and how you should be behaving at that time of day. Would you agree, as a DJ?
Yeah, it's funny, I was having a conversation with another artist about this very subject, and this actually links back to something we talked about earlier, about social media. He presents himself in a way that he is the party kind of person. So now when he turns up to a gig, everybody expects him to be on it, and he's not really like that all the time. That's just the content that he curates. Yeah, but this is definitely like that. But you just draw boundaries. As soon as you turn up, you know, you stick to what you're comfortable with, and you stay in that zone if you can.
That's really tricky though. I get what you're saying. I remember I was speaking at Amsterdam Dance Event last year. I went to meet a friend of mine, and he was doing a DJ set, and I got there, and his rider was like, it's okay, you don't need to pay for any drinks. We've got a rider which is like 3 bottles of gin. I'm like, how is one person, bearing in mind they didn't know he was going to bring friends, one person, how are they going to get through 3 bottles of gin? You know? So yes, I think if you can put boundaries on yourself, I think that's great. I mean, I'm not a DJ, and I find it hard to put boundaries on myself. Do you know?
I mean, I have very strict rules. That I don't do anything before. I don't drink at all. And I do maybe a beer or 2 before I play, but that is it. Because it's so important to me to do a really good set. Yeah. It's important for me to do a job properly. It affects me more if I can't do my job properly. Yeah. It'll haunt me, and I'll feel terrible if I can't do if I played a bad set.
And has that always been your approach, or did you have to learn that along the way?
Probably always been my approach, because the goal isn't about there to party. I love this music, so that's the goal. You know, once I've played, game on. You know, I'll have fun. And after my bag's packed, that's the other big one. I've learned that.
After your bag's packed, yeah.
That was the hard one. I've lost passports.
You can pack some weird stuff otherwise.
I think that's amazing, though. I really think it's amazing that you can do that. I have a huge amount of respect for that. I guess I just know that, not talking from my personal experience from the study, that's not easy, and people are finding it difficult because not everyone has the strength or the to do that. So the research would say people are being presented with drugs and alcohol, and it's hard to say no if it's there. That's what it, you know.
Also the fact being a DJ is a very tricky business. Like I've played in some place, but I'm not thought like around, but played in some place and they've offered me like whiskey and stuff and whatever. When you see me with a glass of gin tonic and vodka, and if you offer me something, I tell you, I still have my glass, thank you. So yeah, you can leave the bottle, and whoever wants to drink it, drink it. So I've learned all these things.
You've got some good tricks.
Oh, I've learned a lot, my dear. I've learned a lot. I remember I went to somebody to watch a DJ play in Berlin, and this DJ was drinking. I was like, whoa, how does he keep playing? Like, whoa. So I understand. Like, when I play, you give me something, I tell you, put it in the glass, and if you offer me more bottles, I tell you, I still have mine. Like, thank you. Yeah. But thank you in a super nice way. You don't want to just, thank you.
But it can be a really tough issue, and I believe you guys might have had a chat about this in one of your previous discussions. But you know, if you're an artist and you're out on the road for 2 months, and every day you're playing a show, and your environment is, you know, alcohol and late nights, then it will start affecting you. And then I think there's more physical aspects to it too, and this can all really. It can all really affect the way that you're mentally dealing with things. So the lack of sleep when you're on tour, and not having your friends and family nearby. And as you were saying, you know, maybe not seeing anyone that you know for...
Or even someone familiar for longer than 2 days. Yeah. It's a constant change of people. When you're having to you almost become a social chameleon. It's like a survival technique on the big tours. As soon as you get picked up at the airport and you know that's the person looking after you for the next 2 days, you would find that one thing in common that you have with that person, just so you've got like a bond. And then you almost feel like with that person, you know, you almost feel like you know them by the end, you know, because you're really building that relationship. But then 2 days later, or a day later, you're straight back on the plane, and the process starts all over again, because you just want friendly, familiar people around you.
It's, do you mind if I just go back to the responsibility element that you brought up? Because there is I don't like necessarily talking about who is responsible. I think there's loads of different areas of responsibility, because I think that as a charity who's trying to help every single bit of the industry, it's not my place or our place as a charity to talk about duty of care, because we have a duty of care over the whole industry. But there are questions to be asked by that person who puts the rider out with all the drink. Why is that okay? Because you wouldn't go into the bank, sit down, and someone just passes you a bucket of gin. You know, it's like other industries don't do it. Why do we? But there are different areas, so there's that to think about. Is it the responsibility of the manager to make sure that that doesn't happen? Is it the responsibility of the place where they're playing? There's loads of different places that you can, that you can look at. And also, I agree with what you said earlier about the self. There is, and that's why I really admire your strength, and also the fact that you're really quite set and professional how you do things and really focused, because you can't forget the individual. There is an element of self-love, self-care, self-help, even mental health first aid. So knowing what the signs are, being able to check yourself, being able to ask other people if they're okay, because you can see that they're struggling. So I think there's lots of different areas to look at, and I do think you can't ignore the responsibility of the individual to make those choices, or to simply understand what's going on.
Mm-hmm. Definitely an element of peer pressure as well. When you're out with a whole group of artists, it can sometimes just descend into a stag party, and everyone expects you to go with it, and that can be very difficult.
Yeah.
Because there's that peer thing going on.
Yeah.
Especially if you're a young artist and you've just had your big break, you feel like you need to engage in that, and you could end up on a very slippery slope. I've seen it many times.
Yeah. So you mentioned in the big break there is a really interesting point as well, because another thing that we should really mention here is artist success, or success in the field that you're working in, and who gets to judge that, because it's such every project is so different, every release is so different. So how do you sort of validate yourself, and how do you react when somebody else feels that they get to criticize the thing that you've been working on for such a long time?
Well, just to kind of support what you've said, I mean, that did come out in the study, defining success, because so often people define success by money, and we know we've talked about the money issues, which also came out of the study. But it is that if you can't define something by what you earn, then you start to question what success is. You start to question, am I successful? Because then with social media, you can look at other people and think, oh, but they're more successful than me. Why aren't I doing that? So there's a real confusion around, how do you know that you're successful? Because you don't have that measure that other people do, like money, to say, oh, well, I've got more money now because I've gone up the ranks. It's not that simple. So that was a real cause of depression and anxiety for those who responded to the study.
Yeah.
Maybe you guys have a kind of different take on it.
Well, think about the first, as an artist, for me, what's important is my brand. My brand is my success. It's like what I've devoted my whole time trying to build. And for me, I wanted to be an artist. If you mention my name and you go online to check me, you're gonna find me like, whoa. I wanted my brand to be like that. So I spent time trying to develop my brand. For me, that was success. For me, that was important. Mm-hmm. People call me for gig because they just check online. Somebody told them about me and they feel like, anyway, who's he? And they check me, and Google is able to like define me better for them. And they're like, whoa. I spend my time doing all these things. I do music. I spend that little time trying to put more water on my plant and let it grow. For me, it's important. Then after that, you can start talking, okay, success. Is it money? But yeah, you can be a DJ for 150 euro, or you can be a DJ for 1,000 euro. When I came to this city, I was telling her, I came last year and people were telling me like, yeah, you're a good DJ, you should start checking gigs and not get gigs and stuff. And I was like, no, I think this city has much to offer. So I prefer to spend time making my music, and working on my brand. And one day I was invited to a bar by a friend, and she offered me a drink and stuff. Then we talked and stuff, and she told me, yeah, can I listen to your music? And I said, yeah. I sent her a link, and she listened to my music, and she sent me a text telling me, whoa, dude, you have a lot of music, like you know, you're walking, because people want to see a walking artist, not just artist or not just DJ, but he's walking. So that's why we have social, to like be able to let them understand you're walking, I'm doing something. I don't just go to DJ and go back home to sleep. When I finish DJing, I go back home, I sit in the studio and try to make music. So I'm doing back and forth.
Yeah.
So after all these things I did for myself, now I'm getting my first gig in Berlin to play. And they pay me shit tons of, they pay me huge. I'm playing a private party, but this is what I said to myself. I said my first gig in Berlin is not going to be a gig of 500 euros. I said so. So it's how you present yourself, it's how you want people to see you, it's how you want to do your music, or I don't know, but for me, when I came to this city, I said so. I said I was not going to play, I was going to make music, I just want people to ask me what I do, and I tell them this is what I do, and they could find it, and they could check it, and whoa. So I believe in, before success, work on yourself. Before you want to see, if your expectation is money, then I think you should work a lot on yourself. You should work a lot, or you could make money. You could make 200 and 300 euro, and you think you're making money, but you're more than that.
Yeah.
So this is different age, and I believe in working more on myself, on my creativity, and let it push me further while I do the rest of the work.
Yeah.
For me personally, obviously I can only define success for myself, but I kind of like looking at it in a micro format rather than a macro format. It's not like there's some big, because at the end of the day, one thing I learned very quickly, you don't get massive movie-style climax at the end with a big party. It just doesn't go that way. So just focusing on little goals, and it all becomes very cumulative. Every other day I just aim to get a nice email, like an offer for a podcast or a possible release. Different. Obviously, there's different scales of the potential, but it's just focusing on those little micro things, and that just keeps me happy, and it just keeps me going.
That's the same thing as walking. You have to walk.
Yeah, but just not thinking too much about the larger things. Just focusing on the micro goals, and then some days you just suddenly take stock and you go, hang on a minute. Compared to us 6 months now, I'm doing all right. It's kind of good. But it's one thing you were saying about money that I found interesting. So at first I was like, it isn't about money and all that. But then I remember when I went through a really hard financial time about 7 years ago. It was one of the most stressful times in my life. So money definitely does come into it.
Yeah, absolutely. But just to pick up on what you said just then, though, defining your own success. I think that is the key to this, isn't it? It's just about understanding that perhaps for one artist, 10 million streams on a new release is a success. Maybe 8 million isn't a success for them, but 10 million, that's cool. Whereas for another artist, just completing the process of making a record, that can be an incredibly difficult and involving thing to do. But once you get it done, amazing. That's the success of it.
I think that's then. Now you spend your time making the record, and then you go to Spotify and it's still 0 play. You're going to get frustrated after much success of making that record. That is very, very, very frustrating. That is killing. That is like, who's going to listen to my song? That is killing. This is different age. It's frustrating. Yeah. It's frustrating because you feel like nobody's listening to you, nobody's hearing you. So maybe if you have 1 play, you can feel like, good, okay.
Financially speaking, I just like to look at it as if I'm achieving all my creative goals, like I've set myself up, I want to play Berghain twice this year, or I want to release an album, or something like that. As long as I stick to that narrative and that makes me happy, the money is just a symptom of doing that. I know it's not a very particularly business clever way of looking at things.
Yeah.
But that's the happiness. One comes, whenever I try to do something for pure financial reasons, I usually find it backfires. I just tend to stick to the creative, and the money is a symptom of just you doing what you love.
Yeah.
If that makes sense.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, I think there's Yeah, it's a really interesting conversation, the money side of things, and and people were clearly, it was causing them distress. And I think it was, one of the people who undertook an interview had said, you wouldn't ask a doctor to perform for free, would you?
No. Jarman,
You wouldn't say, okay, you're going to do that surgery because you need exposure. So there is also what the value of music and the education of society in its broader sense. People who work in venues, just to say that there is a value in music, and actually if you valued music more, then the people who created it would value it more, and they'd value themselves more, and actually they would get paid.
One of the biggest stresses I find is because when you get to a certain level, the fees can get really big. And if you've only got, say, a certain amount of gigs that month, and that gig gets cancelled, you're in a lot of trouble. You've just you've just gone from having 1,500 euros to not having 1,500 euros, and that can that's a huge problem. You've just lost a month or a week's worth of work just because a gig got cancelled, and that can cause a huge amount of stress.
Absolutely, and that's just comes back to the insecurity of everything. The financial insecurity that can sit alongside artistic insecurity.
Excuse me, but don't they pay upfront, like half?
Yeah, but sometimes things are out of your control. Like for example, if British Airways happened to me last year, British Airways computers go down. Suddenly, I'm stuck in London. I can't make my gig in Eastern Europe, and I can't get the fee. It's just that simple.
Oh, I see.
So it's not always in your control.
Yeah.
Or just a straight up cancellation. You think you've got it, and the promoter's a bit flaky, and they just disappear.
Yeah.
Weeks before. I mean, I get paid up front, but it's not always a guarantee that you're going to get paid.
Yeah.
Doesn't happen often, but when it does, it can be very stressful.
Yeah, again, that comes down to I mean, one of the things that our charity's looking at, whilst we're talking, we look at health and welfare of the kind of the music ecosystem or music community, we are doing more in terms of looking at businesses and business development. Because a venue's a business, and if we enable them to look after their business more effectively, which is part of the ecosystem in terms of music, or say music in this sense. If we enable them, then they enable those who use that space. So those artists who get their first break, people who, the gigs, if they, so that we as a charity, we want to look more outside of the individual, but more about the community around the artist or the creator, if we call it in this sense. And I think that enabling those businesses might help some of the issues you're talking about. So it's again about, that side of things, not just about the individual.
And I think the comment that you made a few minutes ago as well about the value of music in general is really important. I had a really weird request like a year or so ago where somebody sent me a message and they were like, I can't remember how much it was, but they were like, we need a cello. Do you know a cello? We've got like £100. We need a cello. And I was like, I know a cellist with a cello. And they were like, oh, cool. We can pay them £50. And I was like, hang on. Whoa. So for an actual person to come and play the cello with all of the training that they have behind them, the hours that they're going to put in, the traveling, and you think that that's worth less than just hiring an instrument. And it was such a strange conversation. I couldn't figure out where it came from, but it sort of taps into this whole weird mentality that, I mean, this is going off in a whole different branch that maybe streaming has introduced to the music industry of, a strange tilted value of music.
I think artists should learn to, you don't speak for free. You don't go like, no. When I stopped doing that, my life changed. Like when I started to understand, thank you, and I compensate. Okay?
Yeah.
Like it's from my heart to say thank you. They were always there for me. But I don't just go to seek free. Once you decide to be an artist, you should always understand you have to keep a little something in your pocket because you want to help yourself. You want to help your career. You want to help your production. You're going to pay a master. So as the mastering, you want bloggers to blog about you. some bloggers don't even ask anything, maybe 10 euros, just give them 10 euros. You understand me? So you have to think of a little, I think this is why, sometime in America, like I have some friends in America, they do hip hop music, they're so successful, like, because the 10 group of guys, one is the artist, the rest just stand behind him because they believe in that one. So if it's, oh, I have $10, and everybody try to push. So you don't, as an artist these days, you must think of the fact if you want somebody to help you in terms of your production, your creativity, you have to try to compensate.
One thing I find kind of interesting is you mentioned earlier you're a journalist, and obviously that's been a massive change. You know, you went from magazine publications when you had really good journalism. I mean, what happened to that industry?
Oh, it died.
In the music sense.
But it did. I mean,
Yeah.
again, this internet thing,
Yeah.
it came along, and it just completely changed the entire system. So, I mean, I started out as a music journalist
Yeah.
at a music magazine with a salary, you know, absolutely fine. I could just go and write about music all day, absolutely brilliant. And then, you know, everything went online, and nobody really paid that much attention to what was going to happen when everything went online and where the money was going to come from.
How quickly would you say that changed?
Pretty quick. I mean,
Yeah.
it's the space of like 3 or 4 years,
Yeah.
I'd say. Yeah. So, I mean, it completely transformed, and I think various other creative sectors are finding the exact same thing, you know, just keeping up with changing technologies and stuff like that.
Like print media is dying in
Yeah,
itself.
yeah. It can really mess
Wow.
with your income. But just going back to what you said, I completely agree that people should insist on being compensated for the skills that they're offering and that they're putting in front of people. But it's a very difficult conversation to have for a lot of artists who perhaps don't have a huge setup around them. They don't have too many opportunities, you know. Perhaps they would feel inclined to play a show for free to be able to get there. I think this is something that needs a lot of attention.
I think I've written to some bloggers, and I like try to tell them I'm not a superstar. I'm an independent artist. I'm trying to push myself, and I believe my music is good. I think you're gonna like it, and I hope I can try to be able to compensate you with what I have. I don't have much, so I let you understand. You know, the way I write you can understand me. Like, okay, let me just give him a chance, poor boy. But you understand me? So it's the way I try to present my style, the way I try to present my things to people. Mostly I've got attention of some super important people, but trying to be like very humble and letting them understand, like, yeah, I'm an artist, but I'm not like a super artist. If I was, I think I could, but you know. So I think so, and most of the time it works for me. These things, they work for me a lot. I don't know why it works for me. I don't know why me, but for me it works. I just don't know why, but for me it's strange.
If I had to think about practical ways in order to enable someone in that sense, I think it's about education and enabling artists and whatever part of the industry you're in, enabling them to be able to go about their business. So talking about mental health or any of the issues we've been talking about tonight, I think there has to be a whole education piece about what it means to be working in music, or what does it mean to be an artist, what does it mean to be a DJ, because so often we focus on the music, and actually forums like this are really, really important because it's about the other stuff.
Yeah.
It is about, you have to be a creative entrepreneur, you have to be a business person now. You might decide not to do social media, but if you are going to do it, be business-like about it. Educate. I mean, our charity has a duty to educate people about their own mental well-being. So I think education is a massive issue, and it could be as simple as things around how to send an email. I remember sending my first email. No clue.
Like, for example, I have this guy I follow online, and he has free download for how to send an email properly to whoever, and I have them. Anytime I want to send this email, I just copy and paste.
Yeah.
Because well written, super written. I just boom.
Yeah.
And
I
if
do
you get
also
that
think
email,
sort of-
you're gonna trip.
I think kind of a lot of newer artists have forgot how to be patient as well, and I think the music industry itself's to blame for that. You know, people can blow up very quick nowadays. And I don't mean to be Mr. Back in the Day, but I'm being Mr. Back in the Day. But you know, you had to work really. You know, you had to do all that stuff, and then you built a really solid foundation, and then your career would evolve.
For me, it's important
I
building that
think
foundation.
I think a lot of particularly younger artists are very much in a rush. They're too much in a rush and not being patient, and that's where people get exploited.
Yeah.
And I think, and again, apologies for anyone that's not focusing on music in the whatever it is that they're doing, but I think from a music industry side as well, everybody's looking for that really quick fix as well. So it's, I think what you were saying about education there is a very good point for us to kind of round this conversation up on, because I think a lot of the topics that we've talked about today, about like finding boundaries, about understanding what it is that you want, what you personally define as success, I think it all comes back to education and just sort of giving people the impetus to think about that stuff and to really consider it and set themselves goals and
the tools to do it. You know, I think it's really important. I mean, if only there was a toolkit of how to do this thing. I love the idea of our charity becoming it's not just my idea, but you know, within our strategy, we've been talking about this one-stop shop idea. You know, a place where people can go. Do you want to find out about how to get about copyright? Do you want to find out about, I don't know, it could be anything. But yeah, I think there's a massive education piece, because I think that it's a really tough industry, whether you're in music or film or tech and if only we could just educate and enable. And that's why, again, these forums are amazing, because I hope there's practical things that you've all got out of it. But yeah, I just think, how do we expect people to succeed if we don't enable them and give them all the information they need? Because it's not just as easy as making music or making a film and going off and doing it. And I think it's our duty to enable people.
yeah.
Yeah.
I completely agree.
I completely agree also. And I think also it's also our duty to make research. We have to research. If you want to work in the field, do your research.
Good point.
Yeah.
Do your research. Research. If you want to be an artist, techno, DJ, whatever, spend a whole lot of time. It took me 6 years to understand all these things. I had to read through contract every night before I go to sleep because I couldn't understand. I had to read again. I couldn't understand. Take it to people. You have to do your research. You have to understand what you do. And if you don't understand what you're doing, then you're going to find your success, I don't know, maybe when you're 50 or 40 years. But I think the internet is there. Make your music, take a break, research. Research. You're going to find a lot of answers, or they can call, I don't know, but they have to research. I did this, it changed my life. I went to seminar, I write some things I don't know how to pronounce in the music scene.
Yeah.
I go and I ask people and they tell I did a lot of research to be able to understand, you're trying to be an artist, also at the same time you're being a brand and you have to understand how to move and what to do.
Yeah.
It is. It's educating yourself then as well.
Yeah.
So it's not just being given being educated, and where I see our role to be as a charity. But yeah, it's the point. You still have responsibility as the individual, because you're not going to be given everything.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
for sure, because I went to seminars. After seminars, I did my research.
Yeah.